The chandeliers glowed with a golden warmth, spilling light across polished wooden tables. Each place setting was perfect. Crystal glasses, silver cutlery, linen napkins folded into precise triangles. A faint trace of garlic and rosemary still lingered in the air, mixed with the sweetness of lemon zest from tarts cooling in the kitchen. Juliet Martin stood in the center of the dining room, apron tied tightly around her waist, her chest rising and falling too quickly. The playlist she'd made for the evening, songs that carried childhood memories, looped softly, echoing into the silence. But no one came. Her eyes darted to the host stand, where handwritten menus were stacked neatly. Hours of ink smudges on her fingers, late nights choosing fonts, perfecting each word, all for nothing. She checked her phone again. The screen was blank. No calls, no texts, no apologies. Her hand trembled as she refreshed her notifications. And then it appeared. Instagram. Ezra Martin. Promotion party vibes. Juliet's thumb froze over the glowing screen. She tapped. Video filled the display. Her entire family stood in Ezra's backyard, plastic chairs scattered on uneven grass, cheap paper plates piled with overcooked meat. Someone laughed too loudly as a cake appeared, icing scrawled in bold letters, "To bigger things." Bigger than her. Juliet's knees nearly buckled. She gripped the edge of a table, knuckles whitening. The betrayal wasn't loud or violent. It was casual, careless. They hadn't just forgotten. They'd chosen to be somewhere else. Her restaurant, the dream she had poured her bones into, wasn't worth their time. The first tear stung her cheek, hot and unwanted. She wiped it away quickly, furious at herself for letting them see her cry, even if only in her imagination. The phone buzzed. One new text. From Dad. "We need to discuss the restaurant." Juliet stared at the words until they blurred. She could already hear his voice in her head, clipped and businesslike. He wasn't checking on her heart, he was checking on his wallet. Her reply came fast, her fingers steady now, sharp as a blade. Effective immediately, the restaurant is closed to all family. No reservations, no discounts, no exceptions. She pressed send. And then the phone lit up, again and again. 19 missed calls in less than 20 minutes. A knock at the back kitchen door. Juliet froze. She wasn't expecting anyone. The pounding came again, heavier this time. She moved slowly through the kitchen, her sneakers squeaking against the tile. Her breath shortened as she reached the door. She opened it. Ezra. Of course. He stood there in his tailored blazer, smelling of cologne so thick it made her throat burn. In his hand, a half-empty cake box. Ezra. Figured you'd want a slice. Juliet didn't move. Didn't speak. Ezra. Look, Jules, we didn't think the opening was that big of a deal. Dad said it was just soft launch vibes. Juliet stepped outside, shutting the door behind her with a hard click. The night air wrapped around them, cool and biting. Juliet. You went to his party, not mine. Her voice cracked on the edge of fury, but her eyes stayed steady, pinning him in place. Juliet continued. I texted Mom 3 times. I made your favorite lemon tart. It sat untouched for 5 hours. Ezra. People got busy. Juliet. No. People got lazy. She walked past him carrying a trash bag and hurled it into the dumpster with a hollow thud. Ezra flinched at the sound. Juliet continued. You thought I'd always be the backup plan. Ezra. Following her, desperation creeping into his voice. Dad wants to invest now. He sees potential. He asked me to talk to you. Juliet laughed once, bitter, humorless. Of course. Not guilt, not support, just business. She turned, meeting his eyes with an icy calm. Juliet. Tell Dad the restaurant is fully funded.
The investor bought exclusive rights to my loyalty. Ezra blinked, confusion flickering across his face. What does that mean? Juliet's smile was sharp enough to cut. It means you're late, and I don't do leftovers. She stepped inside, locking the door behind her. Through the glass, Ezra lingered, his breath fogging the pain. But Juliet didn't move. She watched until he finally turned and walked away into the night. Her chest was tight, but not from grief anymore. From clarity. Tomorrow, the locks would change. And so would she.
The screwdriver slipped once and nicked Juliet's knuckle. A bright bead of blood welled up, precise and red. She sucked it away, finished tightening the new brass deadbolt, and tried the door twice. Solid. The metal gave a satisfying thunk she felt in her ribs. On a wooden stool near the entry, a white foam board sign leaned, hand-lettered in her careful script. Dear customers, due to overwhelming support, we're transitioning to reservations only. No walk-ins accepted, even if we share DNA. She taped it to the glass. It looked almost pretty. It felt like a barricade. By noon, 2 girls with film cameras took photos from the sidewalk. By 2, a food blogger in a mustard scarf posed with a thumbs up. By 3, someone tagged her on a reel set to an upbeat track. Boundaries taste better than betrayal. Juliet didn't dance. She plated. She moved through the kitchen like a conductor, checking the snap of haricot verres, the sheen on beurre blanc, the whisper of a lemon's essential oil as she twisted the peel. Her staff moved around her with the blind trust of people who had seen her carry a dream on her back without asking them to break theirs. Host off screen. 2 from Georgia, reservation under Harper. Juliet wiped her hands and stepped out. Interior dining room, continuous. The couple stood shyly, fingers intertwined. Tourists, she could smell the airport still clinging to their coats. Woman, we saw you online, canceled our other reservation. We wanted to be where someone finally said no. Juliet guided them to a 2-top near the window. As she laid down menus, her reflection caught in the glass. Apron tied like armor, hair pinned back, jaw set. She didn't look defensive anymore. She looked decided. The first night with the sign was full. Laughter not related to her last name shook the room. Forks met plates like soft applause. When they left, the couple from Georgia pressed a folded note into the check presenter. We don't know you, but we're proud of you. H&L. She tucked it into her pocket. She didn't cry. Her phone vibrated on the expo shelf. Mom. Voicemail. She let it play as she checked a steak's temp. Mom. Voiceover. Juliet, this is childish. We made a mistake. Stop this public tantrum. Your father is upset. Call me. She turned the burner down a whisper. The steak rested. The voicemail ended. She didn't call. Exterior Juliet's apartment, 2 days later, afternoon. Her peephole framed her father like a portrait. Suit jacket wrinkled just enough to say he'd weighed this. Eyes tired in the way of men who liked to tell themselves the story was almost over. He knocked again, more softly. Juliet opened the door enough to show a line of chain and her face. Dad, let's be adults about this. She didn't unhook the chain. We can talk right here. He exhaled through his nose, fighting the urge to push the door. He held a folder. The very sight of it made her stomach turn. The heavy paper, the promise of decisions made above her head. Dad, your mother's upset. Ezra's confused. We all are. Juliet, you're not confused. You're inconvenienced. He frowned, looking past her into the sliver of apartment like he used to when he'd show up with a request and a clock. I was looking into financing. You were looking into equity, control. A twitch at his jaw, the truth landing. She unhooked the chain, opened the door fully, not an invitation, a brighter light. She held up a manila envelope. He recognized the weight of it immediately. Juliet, here's the deed, the LLC filings,
Patents, recipes. All mine. His eyes flicked, calculating. You got a lawyer?
I got a team. Turns out when you stop waiting for permission to shine, people show up with mirrors. He adjusted his tie, buying a second. This will come back to bite you, Jules. You're burning bridges. Juliet's smile didn't reach her eyes. Then I'll learn to swim. She closed the door. The chain slid back into place with a small, final sound. She leaned her forehead against the wood, breathing in. For the first time, their last name felt like an artifact in a museum she didn't have to visit. Interior, restaurant, night. Service was a low, steady hum. The room pulsed with that tender chaos that means everything's right where it should be. A table laughing and stage left, a solo diner reading under a pendant light, the hiss of scallops hitting a pan like rain on a hot sidewalk. Juliet's phone buzzed. Ezra. They're planning something. Be careful. She stared at the text until the edges of the message box softened. She pocketed the phone, finished drizzling a ribbon of basil oil, sent the plate. The first one-star Yelp review posted at 9:08 p.m. A second at 9:11. By 9:19, there were 6. Food was cold, staff was rude, owner stared at us like we didn't belong. She checked the reservation log, no matching names, no walk-ins. She felt nothing like panic. She felt the weightless click of a trap you saw coming. Juliet walked to the alley door. The night had that soundless cushion of freshly fallen snow, though none had fallen. She called her lawyer. Then she texted Maya, the local journalist who'd once written The Restaurant with a Soul and cried over a bowl of tomato broth at table 6. You free? Someone's playing with matches inside a fireworks store. Interior, newspaper office, next morning. Maya scrolled, eyebrows climbing. They're sloppy. Same phrasing, same typos. If I line these against the reservation list, Julia, you'll find ghosts. Do you want to go on record? Juliet didn't blink. Say my name right. All of it. By 11 a.m., the article ran. Beneath the apron strings, a rising chef fights a family smear. Screenshots of the reviews, timestamps, contradictions. A quote from Juliet's sous chef about a tense visit the week before. A man with her father's eyes, murmuring about buying out the lease if she came to her senses. The comment section bloomed like wildflowers after burn. Imagine being threatened by your daughter's success. Families like this create warriors. She's not a black sheep, she's a phoenix. Interior, restaurant night. A woman in a thrifted coat and a meticulous bun slid into the last open seat at the bar, ordered a glass of red, and asked to see Juliet. When Juliet came out, wiping her hands on her apron, the woman set an envelope on the bar. They tried to break you. I came to tip you $1,000 for not letting them. Juliet took the envelope like it was an egg. She nodded once, steady. She cried later in the walk-in, standing between crates of bright herbs and a wall of prepped mise en place. Not loud, not desperate, a clean, private release. She pressed her palms to the cold steel, cheeks chilly, and let the grief leave her body like steam. When she stepped back into the kitchen, her eyes were clear. The line didn't miss a beat. Close, front door. It swung open at 10:15, when most of the room had melted into dessert. Natalie stood there, perfect navy coat, pale knuckles around a phone, engagement ring catching the pendant light like a tiny accusation. Can I talk to you? Please, just a minute. Juliet almost said no. Something in Natalie's face, an undertow of fear beneath the gloss, kept the refusal in her throat. Interior, back booth, moments later. Natalie sat opposite, hands around a coffee cup Juliet hadn't poured yet. Her lipstick was unbothered, her voice wasn't. I didn't know. I didn't know how far they were going. Juliet waited. Silence had turned useful. Natalie continued. They made a WhatsApp group. Your mom, Ezra, Aunt Linda, Mark. It's called Project Reset. The plan was to pressure you to sell or fail. Juliet didn't flinch. Ezra's text glowed again in her pocket. Juliet, why are you telling me?
the smallest fracture across Natalie's expression. Because they dragged me into it, and because I won't marry a man who treats his sister like a problem. She pushed her phone across the table. Screens lit the booth with an ugly green light. Names, dates, voice notes, recommendations for cutting supplier discounts, coordinating fake reservations, seeding doubt. Natalie continued, "If you want to go public, you have my blessing." Juliet scrolled. Her thumb hovered over a voice note from her mother. "She'll come back when it's hard enough." She set the phone down like it might bite. Juliet, "Thank you." Natalie nodded, a brittle smile cracking. "I thought love meant smoothing things over. Turns out it means telling the truth at the table anyway." She left. The booth held the shape of her for a moment, then released it. Juliet locked up at midnight. The kitchen gleamed. The dining room exhaled. She stood at the windows, the street bending its soft neon around her, and felt the axis shift again. Not revenge, gravity. Interior Juliet's bedroom at dawn. Her phone lit the room in waves. Headlines at 9:12 a.m. Chef Juliet Martin's family caught plotting to sabotage her career. Leaked messages confirm. Juliet didn't call any outlet. She didn't need to. Natalie had posted the screenshots with the caption that cut like clean glass. "I won't be marrying into this family." The internet didn't so much explode as align. Hashtag Stand with Juliet trended by noon. Old school friends who'd eaten her high school brownies and Ziplocs posted throwbacks. A former boss wrote, "She carried us, then carried herself." That's the whole story. Her reservation list booked out 6 weeks in under 3 hours. At 2 p.m., her landlord called. Landlord VO. "Extending your lease 5 years. Rent locked. You're the pride of this block." At 3:17, a text from Ezra. "I didn't know Mom saved that stuff. I'm sorry." She didn't answer. She was tasting sauce, adjusting acid with a squeeze of lemon you could only get right by living through a long night alone. At 5, a woman in a red lipstick and a navy blazer walked in, credentials hanging like a medal. "Food Chronicle. We're doing 10 chefs who survived the fire. You're our cover." Juliet blinked, the word cover hovering above the line like steam. "You're not just a chef. You're a revolution." Service that night felt different. Not louder, not faster, truer. Every plate she sent felt like a page turning, every candle flicker, a beat. Interior dining room after hours. She stood barefoot on the cool wood, wine glass in hand. The room was empty in the best way. Used, loved, deliciously tired. She imagined all the voices still suspended, the laughter caught in the chandeliers until morning. Tomorrow, she'd start planning something bigger. She didn't need to say it out loud. The best revenge wasn't noise. It was the quiet, unstoppable proof of a life that kept opening. The envelope gleamed like it had been designed to impress royalty. Gold foil, heavy cardstock, Juliet's name written in calligraphy, so practiced it made her teeth ache. She slit it open with a butter knife. "You are cordially invited to Ezra and Marlene's engagement brunch." The words glittered under her kitchen light. She waffed, short, sharp, a sound more like a scoff than joy. The same family that had once left her alone in an empty dining room now wanted her at their photo-op brunch, probably hoping she'd play the smiling sister for Instagram. Juliet walked over to the blender, dropped the invitation inside, and pressed start. The blades chewed the golden letters into dust. Interior, new restaurant space, day. Dust motes swirled in the air of the historic brick building downtown. Exposed beams, old factory windows, sunlight streaming in wide squares across the floor. A ladder leaned against the wall where painters rolled on a shade of deep green. Wooden crates of herbs crowded the rooftop garden outside. Juliet stood in the middle of it all, clipboard in hand, surrounded by her staff. Not hired for their last names or polished resumes, but for their hunger. Culinary grads with a debt and no connections, single moms rebuilding, quiet dreamers who had been told no too many times. They looked at her like she wasn't just an employer, but a chance. This place isn't just about food. It's about dignity. Every plate we serve says, "We belong here." The room hummed with agreement. Exterior, downtown, ribbon cutting. Day. A crowd gathered, cameras flashing, neighbors craning to see. The journalist Maya stood near the front with her microphone, the one who'd believed Juliet from the start. Juliet's scissors sliced through the ribbon. Applause surged. The rooftop garden above glowed in the sunlight like a crown. "Maya, Juliet, what would you say to your family now?" Juliet looked directly at the mic, smile soft but deliberate. "Nothing." The crowd hushed. Cameras clicked. "I have nothing left to prove." Applause again, louder this time, rolling through the street like a wave. Interior, new restaurant, night. The opening service was chaos in the best way. Laughter filled the vaulted ceilings. The rooftop garden glowed with fairy lights strung across beams. The staff worked in sync, passing plates like choreography. Juliet stood at the pass, hair tied back, apron smudged, tasting sauce, fixing garnishes, straightening crooked picture frames on the wall between courses. Her hands trembled, but not from fear, from awe. She'd built this. Twice. And this time, no one could take it away. Interior dining room, late night. After service, she sat with her staff, shoes off, sharing leftover bread and bowls of soup. They clinked spoons together like champagne flutes. To second chances. To first ones that count. They laughed, tired and glowing. Interior, back office, midnight. Juliet opened her laptop. A contract filled the screen. She'd been negotiating this deal for months. Suppliers, investors, city permits. With one click, it was finalized. Her second location was official. Ezra's brunch invite? Confetti in the trash. Exterior, street outside new restaurant. Night. Juliet stepped outside into the cool air, locking up behind her. Across the street, a figure lingered in the shadows. She paused. The man turned, cigarette glowing, and she recognized him. Cousin Mark, the one from the Project Reset chat. He flicked the cigarette into the gutter and walked away without a word. Juliet's jaw tightened. The fire wasn't out. It was spreading. Interior, Juliet's restaurant, the next day. The first sign was subtle. A delivery truck that never arrived. Ingredients she'd ordered, crates of oysters, herbs, imported olive oil. Canceled, without explanation. The supplier shrugged over the phone.
Supplier voiceover. "Sorry, Jules, something about credit checks flagged." She hung up slowly, rage bubbling. This wasn't a glitch. It was sabotage. Interior kitchen night. The staff improvised. Dishes rewritten. Menus adjusted on the fly. Customers still left smiling, licking lemon aioli off their spoons, never knowing the chaos that brewed in the back. But Juliet knew. She was fighting shadows. Interior Juliet's bedroom, late night. Another text. Anonymous number. "Careful. They're not finished." Juliet sat up in bed, phone glowing against her face. She didn't need to guess who they were. Her family hadn't shown up to cheer her success, but they'd always show up to try and burn it down. Juliet pulled her laptop closer, opened a blank document, and began typing. Not a menu, not a plan. Evidence. Names, dates, screenshots, notes. If they wanted war, she'd write the record. Interior new restaurant, dawn. She stood in the empty dining room, barefoot, sun creeping through the tall windows. The air was heavy with yeast and herbs, the quiet hum of fridges in the back. She whispered to herself, voice barely audible. "Juliet, you can't burn what's already fire." Her reflection in the window stared back, unflinching. The kitchen breathed like an organism waking up. Steam curled from stockpots. Knives sang against boards. Sunlight slid across steel and glass, clean enough to show you your own pulse. Juliet moved through it all with practiced grace, tasting, nodding, adjusting.
She was reaching for a sprig of rosemary when the front door slammed hard enough to make the hood vents shiver. Host OSC. Juliet? Juliet wiped her hands and stepped into interior dining room, continuous. A man in a slate suit stood at the threshold, flanked by 2 assistants with clipboards. A badge hung from his belt. City Health and Safety. His gaze took in the room without blinking. Inspector Daly. Juliet Martin? Yes. He held up a form. Anonymous complaint triggered a full inspection. Multiple items. Pest activity, improper cold storage, gas irregularities. Juliet's jaw locked, but her palms stayed open, steady. You're welcome to see everything, all at once. He blinked, just a flicker, at the all at once. He'd expected defensiveness. He got light. Interior kitchen moments later. Daly's assistants fanned out. Thermometers clicked against meat. Checklists squeaked under ballpoint pens. Juliet moved with them, opening fridges, lifting lids, calling out temperatures before they were asked. Walk-in at 38, line fridge at 39, hot hold at 162, logs in the black binder, tabbed by date. Daly watched her with the narrowing attention of a man looking for the one loose screw. Pest boxes. Juliet. 4, perimeter. Labeled. We switched to sealed grain 2 months ago. He made a mark. Gas line certifications. Juliet. On the office board, and on my phone, and with the city portal. Pick your favorite. The kitchen exhaled a taut silence, punctuated only by the staccato of keys on clipboards. Then, Assistant 1, OSC. Ms. Martin. Juliet turned. The assistant knelt by the far cold line, reaching under a lowboy fridge. He pulled his hand back, holding a glue trap. Inside, 2 dead roaches stuck like punctuation. A murmur rippled along the stainless steel. Daly's eyes clicked to Juliet's. There it was, the loose screw. Juliet didn't flinch. She walked to the lowboy, crouched, peered into the shadow. Her voice was even. We don't use glue traps, ever. They're illegal in kitchens in this district. Then how did it get under your line? Juliet exhaled once, like diving. Cameras. Interior security office moments later. A tiny room off the back corridor. A pegboard of labeled keys, a wall monitor split into grids. Loading dock, alley, back door, lounge, line, dry storage, office, walk-in, rooftop. Juliet moved the mouse, rewound last night's footage to 1:03 a.m. The timestamp glowed in the corner like a witness. The alley feed showed a figure at the back door keypad, hoodie up, code entered with the comfort of familiarity. The door opened, the figure ducked under the camera's short blind spot. The kitchen feed caught him crossing the line like a man who'd spent his life in kitchens. He lifted the lowboy lip and shoved something underneath. He tossed a small, green key fob onto the counter on his way out, a cocky, extra gesture, then slipped back into the night. Juliet's mouth tightened. Juliet. Freeze. Zoom. Daly leaned in. The face came into focus as the hood shifted under a pendant light. Cousin Mark. Daly exhaled. His assistants exchanged a look. Daly. We'll need a copy of this. Juliet. I'll send you the file, the alarm logs, and a copy of the police report I'm about to file. Daly studied her, the absence of panic, the presence of preparation, then nodded once. We still finished the inspection. Juliet. Finish it twice. Internal kitchen. Later. They finished it twice. When Daly steinily set his pen down, the air felt different, like a storm had passed and found nothing to break. Daly. No violations. Report will note evidence of tampering by an outside party. We'll flag this address for priority patrols for 30 days. A muscle in Juliet's cheek twitched, the only sign of relief she allowed. Juliet. Thank you. Daly pulled a card from his pocket. He hesitated, then lowered his voice. Anonymous complaints don't usually arrive in triplicate at 6 a.m. with matching freezing. Whoever's doing this wants you rattled, not closed. Juliet took the card. Their hands didn't quite touch. Juliet. They'll have to try harder. Internal walk-in fridge minutes later. Cold embraced her like a cathedral. She pressed her forehead to a crate of limes and let the tremor move through her, private and clean. Then she lifted her head. On the steel shelf at eye level, a green key fob sat like a dare. She picked it up. The plastic was warm from her palm in a room where everything else was winter. External back alley, day. Juliet stepped into the weak noon sun with the fob in her hand. The alley smelled like coffee and wet cardboard. A figure leaned against the brick across the way. Ezra. No blazer, an old sweater, eyes that hadn't slept. For a second, they stood like a diptych, the sister who built a life and the brother who wasn't sure how to look at it. Ezra, I didn't know about the inspection. Juliet raised her eyebrow. Her voice was sanded, even. But you know about this. She held up the fob. Recognition flared in his face. Tiny, involuntary. Ezra. Mark. He used to borrow Dad's work keys for side gigs. He duplicates things. Juliet. He put glue traps under my line last night. Ezra swallowed hard. He didn't try to apologize for it. Maybe he'd learned something. Ezra. They're scared of you. Juliet's laugh was a single exhale. Not humor, knowledge. Juliet. They should be scared of themselves. Ezra's eyes flicked down the alley, then back. Ezra. Natalie sent me the article when it went live. I thought Mom would stop. Juliet watched the way you watch a flame near curtains. Juliet. She taught us not to stop. Ezra. I told them the smear would backfire. I told them the WhatsApp group was insane. After Natalie left, they doubled down. It's chaos now. Dad's convinced you'll fold if they squeeze the suppliers and spook the city enough. Juliet held his gaze until he looked like he might break. Look at me. Do I look folded? He shook his head small, ashamed. No. Juliet slid the fob into her pocket. If you want to help me, send me everything you have. Screenshots, names, schedules, or walk away and stop pretending you're neutral while they sharpen knives behind my back. Ezra flinched like the words hit muscle. He nodded once, almost imperceptible. Ezra, check your email in an hour. He left the alley without waiting for absolution. Juliet watched him go, then turned her face to the light until the cold of the walk-in loosened its grip on her skin. Internal office, afternoon. Email notifications stacked like dominoes. Ezra had sent the flood. Subject, I'm done. Threads from Project Reset. Voice notes. Aunt Linda bragging about a friend at the city. Mark joking about adjusting the thermostat so the inspector gets a show. Mom's messages, tidy, surgical, about tightening her world until she understands family first. Juliet sat very still, the cursor blinking on a reply she would never send. The office door knocked. Maya stood there, notebook under her arm, camera slung, face set to listen. Maya, you texted bring a match. What am I lighting? Juliet spun the monitor toward her. Maya read. Her jaw clenched. The reporter disappeared. The friend remained. Maya, we can run this. Careful. Clean. No blood spatter for sport, just the truth. Juliet, not yet. Maya tilted her head. Timing? Juliet nodded. She tapped the calendar on the wall. A gold-foiled square glinted. Tomorrow's Ezra and Marlene's brunch. Juliet, they invited me to that. I put it in a blender. Maya grinned feral. Of course you did. Juliet, they want a photo op. I'll give them a mirror. External event venue, late morning. An old conservatory dressed like a wedding magazine. White chairs, an arch smothered in hydrangeas, a string quartet tuning in the corner, influencers and soft neutrals practicing their laughs. Juliet stood just beyond the stone gate in black. Crisp trousers, clean white shirt, no jewelry but the watch she'd bought herself the week she signed her first lease. She held no invitation. She didn't need one. Natalie appeared at her shoulder, hair pinned, expression bright with something like relief. I shouldn't have come, but I wanted to watch them face themselves. Juliet nodded once. They stepped inside together. Heads turned, camera flashes winked and died. Marlene stiffened in her fitted dress. Ezra went pale. Their mother's smile arrived on her face like a stranger.
Mom. Juliet, you made it! Juliet. I didn't. Maya, already there as press, lifted her camera, not pointing, watching. Juliet set a slim folder on the gift table where gold boxes towered like defenses. Dad. What is this? Juliet looked at him the way you look at a locked door you already have the key for. Juliet. Your messages, your plans, your tampering, the inspection footage. Copies to the city, my lawyer, and the Chronicle, timed for noon no matter what I do. This is just a courtesy.
The quartet faltered, then stopped. Marlene's mouth opened. No sound came out. Mom's hand found the back of a chair and gripped. Dad, you wouldn't dare. Juliet's smile was gentle, almost kind, the way you smile at a child about to learn gravity. I already did. A phone buzzed, then 3, then a dozen. Notifications cascaded across the brunch like rain on glass. Guest whispered, "Oh my God." Screens lit faces blue-white. The Food Chronicle headline bloomed in a sea of plates and peonies. Project Reset. Family's coordinated sabotage of Chef Juliet Martin exposed. Inspection video, messages released. Maya didn't move. She didn't need to. The story was moving on its own, like a river given a slope. Mom looked at Juliet with something new. Not anger, not shame, a recognition so sharp it could draw blood. You aren't mine to manage. Dad, this will ruin us. Juliet tilted her head, a small bird listening to a far-off train. Juliet, you were counting on me to be quiet. I'm not. She turned to go. Ezra stepped into her path, eyes wet, voice small. Ezra, Jules, I sent the files. I'm sorry. Juliet held his gaze. The softness in her voice didn't save him. It named him. Juliet, then start being different after today. Not because of me, because of you. She walked out with Natalie and Maya beside her. Behind them, the quartet tried to start again and failed, a bow squeaking across strings like a bad apology. Exterior, conservatory steps, continuous. Sun spilled down the stone steps. Natalie exhaled a laugh that was almost a sob. Natalie. That felt like breathing after a long time under. Maya checked her watch, then her camera. Maya. Phones will do the rest. You ready for the second fire? Juliet nodded toward the street, where 2 blocks away her rooftop garden floated above brick like a small country that belonged to her and the people she'd invited in. Juliet. I've been ready. Interior. New restaurant. Evening. Service swelled. The room was full before the sun dropped. A woman placed her hand on Juliet's forearm at the pass. Woman. Saw the article. My daughter wants to be a chef. She's scared she won't be enough. Juliet handed her a menu, eyes steady, voice low over the din of the kitchen. Juliet. They said the same to me. The woman nodded, something in her spine lengthening. Juliet turned back to the flame, tossed a pan to catch the light, and smiled. Not for the cameras, for the heat that belonged to her. The rooftop garden breathed out cilantro and damp soil. Downstairs, metal met flame in the slow drum of a kitchen coming to temperature. Juliet stood at the pass with a legal envelope tucked beneath a stack of check presenters, as if paper could hide from the smell of garlic. Maya sat on a milk crate near the soda gun, notebook balanced on her knee. Maya, they're spinning already. Confusion, family misunderstanding. One outlet ran with overzealous relatives. Juliet slid a tasting spoon across the pass. Maya ignored it. She was hungry for something else. Juliet, they can spin until they get dizzy. The truth doesn't care. Maya, you know what comes next, right? Lawsuits, PR men with very white smiles, maybe a tearful interview on morning TV. Juliet's answer was quiet as a knife being set down. Juliet, I know what comes next for me. She tapped the envelope once with a knuckle. The vibration felt like a decision settling. Interior, community legal aid. Afternoon. Fluorescent lights, old carpet, the hum of tired computers. A bulletin board full of flyers for free tax help and renters' rights. Ezra sat in a plastic chair across from Juliet, shoulders folded in, palms open like truth. He looked smaller without a suit, younger without a script. A volunteer attorney named Rosie, late 40s, sharp eyes, a thrift store blazer, read the documents with a highlighter that squeaked. Rosie. Criminal complaint for trespass and tampering against your cousin, civil restraining order against your parents and aunt, affidavits, video, screenshots. It's all here.
Ezra's gaze stayed fixed on the edge of Rosie's desk, as if focusing would stop his stomach from turning. I'll testify. Whatever you need. I don't want to be them. Juliet glanced at him, a brief, assessing warmth. Don't show up for me. Show up because you want a spine. Rosie capped the highlighter. If we file this, there's no going back to polite holidays. You understand? Juliet breathed in through her nose. A memory flashed. Her mother tying an apron on her at 8, saying, "Don't make a mess," while handing her raw dough. The first time Dad called her artsy, like it was weightless enough to float away. There's nowhere to go back to. Interior. Courthouse, day. A line of strangers, metal detector, the polite boredom of people whose lives were about to be stamped by men in robes. Mark stood under a yellowed exit sign, jaw tight, a lawyer whispering in his ear. Their parents beside him, lacquered and brittle. Mom's mouth was set in a line so straight it could slice bread. Ezra hovered on Juliet's flank, hands clasped as if the right posture might count as penance. Dad, you'll regret this, Juliet. She studied his face like a rare wine she'd decided not to buy. If I do, I'll make a reservation for it. They were called, papers shuffled. A judge with kind eyes and a weary patience read the allegations one by one. The glue trap footage played on a grainy monitor. Even pixelated, Mark's profile was unmistakable. The restraining order was granted. 60 yards from both restaurants and her home. No contact, no proxies. Violations would mean jail. The criminal complaint against Mark moved to arraignment. He avoided Juliet's eyes on his walk out, a man suddenly aware his hands were visible. In the hallway, Mom reached for Juliet's wrist. The gesture was practiced. The weather had changed. We raised you. Juliet removed her hand gently, like separating yolk from white. You raised a story about me. I'm writing the rest. Mom's hand fell. For an instant, regret skated across her face, too quick to catch, too late to plant. Exterior. Courthouse steps, continuous. Photographers waited like gulls. Maya held them at the curb with a look only a woman who had fought for truth could throw. Ezra stood on the second step down, not next to Juliet, but not far. Do you hate me? Juliet let the question pass through her like light through glass. No. Hate is a house with too many keys. I changed the locks. He nodded, tears rising, then receding, a tide choosing a different shore. Interior. First restaurant. Night. The original dining room glowed the way a candle glows when you cup a hand around it. The tables were full, the noise gentle, like people reading in the same room. Juliet walked through with a yellow legal pad and stopped at the edge of the kitchen where Anna, a young mother with steady hands, was frosting tarts, while her 6-year-old colored at the staff table in the back. Family meal in 10. And could you come into the office after? Anna looked up, surprise pinched with worry. I didn't mess up the custard. I know. That's why I want to talk. Interior. Office. A whiteboard, a plant that was thriving in indirect light, the legal envelope now opened. Contents spread like a map. 5 staffers crowded in. Anna, UC, the dish poet who could stack plates like architecture. DEV, a line cook with a scar that read like a memoir. Rita, host and historian of everyone's birthdays. Matt, a quiet sous chef who could fold time during rush. Juliet stood with her arms crossed, then uncrossed them. I built this place on my back. That was a mistake. It should be built on all of ours. They watched her, eyes shifting with hope they were afraid to let out. Juliet continued.
I'm selling this restaurant. To you. Silence. But the good kind. The air before rain. Rita, we can't afford you. You don't have to. I've set the value. I'm structuring it as a worker cooperative. Low interest note, paid back over 10 years from profits. Everyone gets equity. Everyone gets a vote. You hire a general manager. You set your salaries. You set your boundaries and keep them. Dev, why now? Juliet's eyes flicked to the framed photo of opening night. 18 empty tables, a woman in a white apron smiling at a future she assumed required permission. Because keeping this would cost me something I'm not willing to spend anymore. My life being the buffer between me and people who say they love me. I need one kitchen that belongs to me, and one that belongs to the people who made it breathe. Anna's voice softened into awe. You'd walk away? Juliet smiled. A real smile, not the kind you put on for guests. I'd walk next to it. Different is not away. Luke wiped a forearm over his eyes, pretending there was steam. Matt, what do you need from us? Juliet slid a binder across the desk. Bylaws, a crash course in governance, a timeline with sticky notes like stepping stones. Commitment. To each other, to the food, to the promise that the door is locked from the inside to anyone who tries to make you small, even me. They laughed, relief and terror braided together. Dev reached out and touched the binder like a relic. Internal new restaurant, late night. Juliet stood alone at the pass, the legal envelope finally empty. She plated one last lemon tart, the same recipe she'd made for Ezra on the worst night that turned into the best life. She stuck a small card in the tart, handwritten, for the ones who stayed. External street, night. Rain began, the kind that makes pavement look like film. Ezra waited under the awning across the street, hands in pockets, no umbrella. He watched patrons spill out, laughing under coats. Juliet stepped out, locked the door, felt the metal click in her palm. Ezra took a breath like a plunge. Marlene called off the engagement. She said she can't build a life on apologies that haven't happened yet. Juliet's mouth curled. She's right. I'm moving. New city. No one knows my name there. I want to learn how to be someone before I introduce him. Juliet studied him, rain beating on the zipper of his jacket. Send me the address when you get there. Not so I can visit, so I can know where to send a first edition cookbook with blank pages. You can write your own recipes. He huffed out a laugh that hurt on its way out. I'll try. Try cooking with your own hands. The rest follows. He nodded. They didn't hug. They didn't need to. Internal first restaurant after hours. The staff gathered around the long table with takeout curtains and a printout of bylaws stained with chili oil. They argued, laughed, chose a name for the cooperative that made them clap spontaneously. Rita wrote it across the whiteboard in looping letters. Common table. Juliet watched from the doorway for a beat too long. Her throat tightened. Leaving a good thing is harder than leaving a bad one. The bad one pushes. The good one asks you to be brave. She placed the keys on the hook labeled Manager and took only one with her, the new place, the garden, the room where she had finally taught herself to stand upright without apology. Internal new restaurant, dawn. Sun slid along the line like a hand blessing each station. Juliet pressed soil around a young basil plant on the rooftop, dirt soft under her fingernails, the city yawning awake below. Her phone vibrated. A news alert. Mark Martin enters plea. Probation finds community service at a food bank. Under it, a text from an unknown number, then a photo. Her mother at a pharmacy counter. No makeup, buying something ordinary. The caption was a single line. I don't know how to be without controlling. I'm trying to learn. It wasn't an apology. It was a human sentence. Juliet typed, erased, typed. There's a farmer's market under the bridge on Saturdays. The tomatoes are ridiculous. That's all. She hit send. It didn't fix anything. It didn't break her either. External rooftop. Maya appeared at the top of the stairs with 2 coffees. She set one beside the basil, bumped Juliet's shoulder with her own. So, you set a kitchen free. How does it feel? Juliet looked out at the city, at the roof lines that could be someone else's mountains. Like I paid a price that was mine to pay. Regrets? Juliet smiled, small, dangerous. None I chose. A sparrow landed on the garden railing, shook rain off like glitter, and flew. Downstairs, the first staffers arrived, their laughter riding the stairwell like steam. Service would start in hours. A woman would walk in with her daughter, eyes shining, and ask if it was too late to learn a craft. Juliet would hand them a menu and say the only true thing she knew. It's never too late to show up for yourself. She turned toward the stairs, toward the heat, toward a life that no longer made room for people who only came when there was something left to eat. And in the quiet space between her steps, she felt it. Costly, clean, irreversible. Freedom.
The basil had grown thick. Tomatoes swelled like lanterns on the vine, dew still clinging. Bees hovered lazily over lavender stalks. Juliet knelt in the soil, apron already dusted with green. She clipped a ripe tomato, its skin taut and glowing, and held it up to the light. The first true harvest. Below, the city groaned awake, trucks, horns, the metallic shriek of a subway. Up here, it was only the sound of growth. She placed the tomato into a wooden crate. A whole row was ready. Interior new restaurant, day. The dining room buzzed with pre-service ritual. Glassware polished, candles set, silverware aligned like a military parade. Staff in fresh aprons darted through the kitchen, already tasting, laughing, slicing. Juliet entered carrying the crate. The room went quiet for just a beat, reverence disguised as attention. She set the tomatoes on the pass. Juliet. First fruits. Let's see if freedom tastes good. Laughter rippled, nervous but giddy. The staff crowded around, each taking one. They bit. The juice ran right down chins and onto aprons. No one minded. Anna. Oh my God, that's ridiculous. Matt. Better than anything a supplier could truck in. Juliet bit into hers last. It burst with sun, soil, patience. She closed her eyes. Juliet, voiceover. I spent years asking if I was enough. Turns out the question was rotten. The real one is, am I mine? She swallowed. She was. Interior restaurant, lunch service. The first dish with rooftop tomatoes hit the tables. Heirloom slices over burrata, basil oil dripping gold. Diners gasped at the color, snapped photos, leaned in for the first bite. The reaction was instant. A table of tourists clapped after their first mouthful. A local critic scribbled notes between chews. A little girl in braids licked the plate clean while her parents laughed. Juliet watched from the pass, her chest full. This was what arriving felt like. Interior restaurant, mid-afternoon. A woman in her 60s entered, hesitant, hair loose, cardigan thin. Juliet froze. Her mother. The staff stiffened. Anna instinctively blocked her path. Juliet lifted a hand. It's all right. Her mother approached the bar, eyes on the floor. She didn't order, she just placed a small brown paper bag on the counter. Mom. Tomatoes. From the backyard. You used to eat them with salt when you were little. Juliet looked at the bag, looked at her mother. Silence stretched. Finally, Juliet opened the bag. The tomatoes inside were misshapen, bruised in spots, but fragrant. The smell of a childhood summer. She nodded once. I'll put them in staff meal. Her mother's eyes shimmered, but no words came. She turned, walked out. The door shut softly behind her.
Juliet exhaled. Not forgiveness, not hatred, something quieter. Recognition. Interior kitchen, evening. Staff meal was pasta tossed with the backyard tomatoes, garlic, and olive oil. They ate standing up, forks clinking against pans, laughter spilling into the hood vents. Juliet twirled noodles on her fork, then set it down, listening. The sound of people choosing each other. It filled the cracks inside her that family had left empty. Exterior, new restaurant, night. The rooftop glowed under string lights. Diners lingered at tables, sipping wine, eyes on the skyline. Juliet stood at the railing, barefoot, glass of water in hand. Ezra appeared beside her. A little thinner, his hair longer, his face less guarded. Ezra, I'm working at a nonprofit now. Food insecurity. Not glamorous, but it feels real. Juliet nodded, eyes still on the skyline. Good. Real feeds you longer than glamour. Ezra smiled faintly. You don't owe me anything, but I wanted to see you standing here, to remind myself it's possible. Juliet glanced at him. No sharpness this time, just truth. Then remember this. No one will hand you the table. You build it. Ezra breathed deep and nodded and left her there under the lights. Interior restaurant, after hours. The last table cleared, chairs flipped, floors mopped, the staff clocked out, hugs exchanged, tired laughter trailing out the door. Juliet lingered alone. She dimmed the chandeliers until the room glowed like embers. She carried a plate of the last rooftop tomato salad to a table for one. She sat, ate slowly, chewed deliberately, savored. Around her, the silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was earned.
Juliet, VO. They said I was burning bridges. They were right. But no one tells you the part after, how warm it feels when you stand in the light of your own fire. She finished the last bite, set her fork down gently. Exterior rooftop dawn. A new day. Sun rising, painting the city gold. Dew on leaves. Bees already at work. Juliet walked between the rows, fingertips brushing plants. Her apron caught the wind like a flag. In the distance, church bells rang. Somewhere else, her family was probably still spinning stories. She didn't need to hear them. She bent, clipped another tomato, held it in her palm. She smiled, not at revenge, at survival, at success, at freedom, at being hers. She bit in. Juice spilled down her wrist. She laughed softly and licked it away. The rooftop, the city, the world, all hers now.